Well, we're here today with Mr. Adam Buxton. How are you, sir? First things first.
I'm fine, thank you. I'm dressed as a creepy captain on a horrible leaky boat. I don't know why I put this hat on. I think because my hair is getting very shaggy in lockdown 3. Are we in? I think it is.
Yeah, just coming out of it, yeah.
And I read I saw the other day that Tony Blair was getting a lot of grief for his Peter Stringfellow mullet, which I thought was a bit. I'm not behind ridiculing people for the way they look, even war criminals. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, I think you should find other things to tease people about, especially if they are Tony Blair. Anyway, listen, I've gone off the subject. That's why I'm wearing a hat, because I'm self-conscious about my shaggy lockdown hair.
Do you find yourself being more self-conscious because of all the Zoom type interactions and stuff these days? Because I started on this. I feel I look like I've got a really red face. I've not looked in the mirror today. I don't know if I've actually got a red face or if the lighting is strange or what. But yeah, it's a more common, like, we're confronted with our own faces more often now, right?
Yeah, I'm quite vain anyway, I think. So I do tend to stare at myself in Zoom calls mainly. And so I go, look at that. Look at that. Or I try and find my best angle or something like that. You know?
Yeah. Sometimes I worry when it's only two of you on a call. If you're looking at the person, they can tell when you're now looking across to check yourself out, can't they? When your eyes are flickering, and then you're adjusting yourself. Sometimes it's just best to turn yourself off.
I'm sure I'm not the first person to comment on it, but it's the like right now I'm trying to connect with you directly. I'm looking at my camera, but then it feels weird that I can't actually see you except in my peripheral vision. Now I can see you, but now we're not connecting. Fucking technology. Fuck you, technology. I don't appreciate anything you're doing for the human race. Screw you!
Well, this is good, though, Adam, because I think we want to have a chat about some of this stuff, podcasting during pandemic and things. But we should probably explain, first of all, if anybody's tuned into this, why we're actually here, what we're doing, Pip.
The reason we're here, Adam, you were our first ever cover star or lead interview of Pod Bible magazine, but it was at a point that we didn't do our wonderful stained glass window cover art. So we kind of wanted to reissue it because it's always annoyed us, like particularly when we're sharing all the old covers, that the first cover was a very dry and static. Here's Adam with the cover.
Boring.
That's just a picture of a Bible.
Oh yeah,
that says Pod Bible.
That's very functional, but that's okay. It is.
Yeah, and that was it. But so we decided to reissue and do an Adam Buxton stained glass image to make you a cover star properly at last.
Thanks, man. I mean, I'm delighted. That's never happened to me before. Retrospective glory. I love it.
We've got all of these now. You see, with all our other guests, we've got 13 other mags. You've got straight after you. We had Richard Herring. He got his own one.
Yeah.
Then we had, I'm not going to do all of them, but we got Edith, we got the receipts, we got My Dad Wrote a Porno, and every time we look back at this issue, you think nobody actually, if they're scrolling through the website or they're having a look, nobody knows that you featured, Adam. So we spoke to our illustrator, and he was well up for it.
Cool.
So at the end of the chat, we'll get you to open and reveal. The tube is there. That's it. But before we get to that, we do want to just kind of see how you've been podcasting wise in the pandemic, how that's been for you. We've forced you onto Riverside here, but you've been using Zoom a lot, right?
I've been using a kind of roundabout system, which is Zoom in order to actually see the people, and I'll record the Zoom feed as well. So I've got Logic configured so that I can monitor everything through Logic.
Great.
And so I've got 2 tracks that will record me from this mic and then the Zoom feed. And so I've got that as a backup. But then, of course, my internet is lousy out here. So there's often a lot of compression glitches and dropouts and stuff. So I prefer my guest to be recording their end as well. And then they send me the file afterwards. But it's quite a big ask. I mean, it's a bit of a pain in the ass, especially if you haven't done it before. So I made a little video that I put on a private link on YouTube explaining how to do a QuickTime recording and all that kind of stuff. So it's an extra layer of...
Oh, I love it. That's clever.
Pain in the arsery. And the older the guests are, the more irritated they are. You know what I mean? Like, they just... Most people, when you ask them to do an interview, most people... The more successful people get, the more they are looking for an excuse to say no when they get asked to do an interview. But if they finally agree to do it, and then they find, oh Jesus, I've got to watch a YouTube video for how to make a QuickTime recording, and then the first 15 minutes of my conversation is taken up with me saying, now, have you got your headphones up? Can you make sure your speakers are turned down? And is QuickTime recording? Can you just check that it has recorded from the right mic and not the mic on the laptop? So that's 15 minutes down before we've even said hello.
I mean, Adam, if you were a lesser podcaster, you'd turn that into your intro, right? And have that kind of back and forth moment.
That's right.
Very nice. Yeah, I was interested. I was going to ask both of you that, actually, about how that was. I'm sure it was much worse at the beginning of the pandemic when literally nobody knew how to use any of this stuff. But I imagine most of your guests now have done it before, or have got used to doing it with their families, or maybe not the recording as such. But are people getting a bit more clued up when you're setting up interviews now?
How about you, Pip?
Well, for me, it's headphones. Headphones is always the bit that people struggle with massively, generally because of Bluetooth. So attaching their Bluetooth headphones to their laptop or whatever they're listening on I've had 20 minutes, 30 minutes of sitting there awkwardly as they're going, hang on, I'm just going to try some other ones. This isn't working. So yeah, that's been the bit that has consistently, because again, if you are used to Zoom, no one's just jumping on Zoom with the family and plugging in a mic and putting some headphones on and really getting the most out of the quality of that family time. So yeah, that's been the worst part my end.
Yeah, it is maddening. And that is, that's when you remember to go through that checklist. I've had things where, because my kind of recording and releasing schedule is very arbitrary. So I sometimes won't record for a few weeks, and then I'll record with someone and I'll totally forget to go through the checklist. Yeah. And then at the end of it, they send me their side of the audio and they haven't turned their speakers down and my voice is bleeding all over their side. So it's going to be a nightmare to edit. And that makes me so sad. Sometimes you just think, oh, why do I bother? And the other thing is that I sometimes think, well, I'm obsessing about the sound and people don't really mind that much. But I really do think they do mind, because I know that when I listen to podcasts and if I search for a guest I'm really interested in, right? And I think, oh, look, Eric Andre, he's on this podcast and he's on that. And it's an hour, great. And then you listen to it and it's him in a car and he's on his phone or something and it's really compressed. Yeah. And glitchy, and it's dropping in and out, and the guests are talking over each other, and I just have to stop after about 6 minutes because it's not enjoyable,
Yeah, I completely feel you. Do you get producer guilt as well? Because I get massive producer guilt, rather than it being bad for the listeners, knowing that I'll be sending this poor quality audio to my producer, Buddy Peace, and your guy, Seamus Murphy Mitchell, surely tying things together. That's the thing that hits me, like when I find I've got some poor audio, is like, oh man, I now feel ashamed to give this over to my guy.
Yeah, I feel that a little bit, but mainly I'm angry at myself because I'm the one that does the final pass. So whatever edit I get help with, I'm going to be the one that has to go through it one more time and tighten it up and fix any outstanding problems. But yeah, it is a drag. And I really, really appreciate the efforts of the people who helped me edit, especially Matt Lamont, who, it takes hours. Like if you record for 2.5 hours with someone and you haven't got the speakers turned down, that's going to take them the best part of a day to edit properly.
Yeah, to try and make it sound usable. So, I mean, you spoke of listening there and getting annoyed. can you recommend a podcast or two? Because part of what Pod Bible is we recommend podcasts. So, what are one or two that have got you through the pandemic or these times?
Now, when this question comes up, I'm always obviously desperate to give a selection of answers that make me look incredibly, diverse and open-minded and interested in all kinds of different aspects of life. But I don't know, I'm one of those people that tends to gravitate towards things that are more or less other people I know. Or
it's so funny because I do most of the Pod Bible podcasts where we speak to a lot of people about their shows and get them to do recommendations, and this happens a lot where it's sort of saying, could you talk about a podcast that you're interested in, and we get the look down to the phone, the scroll down, making sure that we're gonna mention the right episodes and pick out
exactly
some of their favorites, because minds go blank, don't they?
So I've got loads. I try loads out. So I'll listen to, Still Processing from the New York Times. I downloaded an episode where they were talking about using the N-word. Two people of color discussing that. I thought that sounds interesting, so I gave that a go. It was interesting, but I haven't listened to loads more. Lex Fridman, who's this scientist guy working on AI, driverless cars. He talks to other kind of computer geniuses and philosophers. Tony Law, the comedian, recommended that to me. It was quite good. But he's another one of these guys that records for about 3.5 hours. And you just think, life's too short. But my the ones I keep coming back to most often, I mean, I listen to the daily New York Times news podcast. And even though there are aspects of it that drive me fucking nuts, it's pretty reliably good. And there's more really interesting, good episodes than stupid ones. I listen to James Acaster's Perfect Sounds podcast and have found myself getting into a lot of music I wouldn't otherwise be listening to thanks to that. I love the Horn Section podcast, which is
consistently fantastic, isn't it? Consistently just silly and entertaining.
Yeah, it really is.
I love it.
I like Fresh Air is good, because that's just a good, solid, that's NPR, the American station, and just good range of interviews with interesting people. Very, well done, proper interviews, as opposed to the kind of conversations that I have where I tend to feature as much as my interviewee. But NPR is more old-fashioned, ask the guest questions, the guest answers the questions. So it's pretty good, and they get amazing guests. And I'm waiting for. I did listen to Louis Theroux's podcast. I'm glad that he stopped doing it, because I really didn't appreciate the market being crowded out by him. I thought that was very unfair of him. And but they were good. I enjoyed them.
Yeah, they were.
He's wonderful, effortless.
Richard Herring, I do listen to him an awful lot. I'm a big fan. And Distraction Pieces, obviously.
Richard Herring's recent one with John Oliver was fantastic. I listened to that recently, and
yeah, that was good.
Not
I tell
John
you the
Oliver
one.
On much.
I guess my trustiest one is Stop Podcasting Yourself, Canadian podcast. I think it's Canada's biggest comedy podcast, and it's Dave Shumka and Graham Clark, two stand-up comedians, actually ex-stand-up in the case of Dave Shumka, and they just talk to other comedians, and it's very light, and they keep it quite silly, but they're clever. They're intelligent guys, and they're really likable. So that it's not going to be one of those sometimes they can be quite bro-y, those type of, when it's all male comedians and stuff. But no, there's a good range of guests, good diversity of guests, and I really like it. They're a couple of people whose company I have valued greatly during the lockdown.
I love it.
Fantastic.
As you were scrolling there, roughly what percentage do you think was podcasts that, because I have loads of these that I've exactly as you said, I've intellectually downloaded one episode and planned to listen to a lot more, but haven't at all. But I've kept them on there because it makes me feel like, there's going to be one. I feel intelligent rather than it's just all the same things I listen to and have done for years.
Yeah. I've got loads of them, and people recommend them but it's a very personal thing, isn't it? A podcast. That's the thing. It's like, that's the great thing about them, is that you form a very intimate connection with them once you get into them. And so you feel compelled to recommend your favorites to other people, but there's absolutely no guarantee that they're going to get into them in the same way that you are. It's a really personal connection. And then the other thing is that sometimes you need a break. You go through a phase of going, it's like falling in love. You're like, I love this guy. I just want more and more of this person.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you overdose and you're like, we need some time apart. I'm like that with Mark Maron and WTF.
Yeah.
I'll go through a phase where he just gets so many good guests, and I'll just hoover up a load of those, and then I realize I'm over marinated. I need a little break.
Yeah.
But he had a good one with John Waters, the director, recently. That was great.
But he's got such an intensity, hasn't he, that it is you need to dip into it for a bit and then step back when needed.
Yeah, man.
I find that with Atletico Mints.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even mention Atletico Mints.
Yeah, if you get about 20 or 30 of them, and I was decorating this very room actually a couple of weeks ago. I was just listening to them in hysterics, loving it. And then I'd had enough. And then I'll go for a couple of months, let them build up again, and wait till the time is right. But yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, is because they're doing a very specific thing, and they just hammer away at that tone. And I love it, And actually it's quite good now because they don't do it absolutely every single week. So whenever one pops up, it's like, oh, here we go. Come on, that's Friday night sorted.
Yeah.
I keep permanently saved on my phone the episode they did that's just the highlights of the Peter Beardsley joke book, because I can dip into that on any journey. If I'm on a journey and I'm like, I don't want to start a new podcast, but I'll go back and listen to them over and over again. It's flawless.
I don't know the names of all of them. I'm lousy at remembering names and stuff. But I think it's Crime Files.
Yeah.
And I am absolutely loving my fucking life. That guy.
He's the guy from the Nonsense Potter.
Yes.
What's his name?
Nonsense Potter.
Neil Hunt.
Neil Hunt. Yes.
That's it.
I can take quite a lot of Neil Hunt.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, me too.
Well,
brilliant.
Without further ado, then I guess it's time for the big reveal. Now, in your tube, there is a print, and there's a couple of other gifts as well, because you've bought. We always enjoy you buying gifts with Joe at Christmas. I've always been a fan of Nardwar, the interviewer, who gets gifts for his guests. So yeah, we wanted to sling a few things in there and allow you to enjoy them.
Okay, here we go. This is exciting.
ASMR time.
ASMR. I'll peel the address label off.
That does sound good.
That's good. That works.
I'll make a noise for that one. That wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be.
Perfect.
Oh no, this is the poster.
Yeah, don't just crumble that up.
Oh look, I've got a belt.
So that one is a priest dog collar.
Oh wow!
So it's for Rosie to be a little priest, or you.
Bible theme.
Yeah.
Bible theme.
Look at that. That looks quite
go.
good, actually.
That is great. Rosie's going to love that. I'm going to put that on her today, and we're going to go for a great holy walk. And here is the poster. Please be flattering. Please be flattering. Please be.
I know, that's the worry, isn't it?
Otherwise, I'm going to have to pretend I like it. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to burn it.
It's wonderfully wrapped.
And ta-da! Now I can see that in my camera, and that's great. That's good. That's flattering. I mean, I don't really deserve that. Look at the...
You like it?
Look at my luxuriant head hair. That does not reflect reality. That's me about 5 years ago, probably. And
he didn't even need to wear a hat.
That's Rosie wearing the pod tracker collar that I used to have for her. I used to have to. It was like really expensive. It's a sort of GPS tracker thing.
Oh wow!
But it was such a pain in the ass. You had to charge it before you put it on every time, and then the app was not really very good. You had to pay a subscription that was pretty hefty. I don't recommend them. Sorry, but no. Anyway, this is great. Thank you so much. I love it.
No problem at all.
What is the name of the artist again?
Dan
the
Draws.
Artist is Dan Evans, but he's on Twitter as Dan Draws or Instagram. I can't remember. But yeah, Dan Draws. And here is the little Issue 1 magazine.
Ah, that's great.
So yeah, people have watched this and they'd like to get themselves a copy of Issue 1 with Adam on it, then they can go to podbiblemag.com.
There should be one other item in there, but it may be lost in wrapping at the moment. But we'll tell you what it is. We got DMC Scratch legend DJ Destruction to do a bit of a cut up of some of your jingles.
No way.
So that's on a little. It looks like a credit card.
Hopefully it's in there, but if not, we can send it to you.
Hey,
there we go.
Wow.
So we won't make you plug that in and then watch your face as you listen. That can be a private thing to do.
That could be a private enjoyment moment.
Yeah.
No, I'll force my family to listen to it tonight.
That's perfect. I love it. Well, thank you very much for giving us your time and for being, as said, the first ever interview, because it was at that point we weren't really a thing yet, and you kindly gave over your time to answer some questions. So yeah, it's very much appreciated.
Oh man, that's the least I could do. As I've said before, I think I owe you a great deal, Pip, because you sort of held my hand through the early stages of setting up a podcast and getting it going, and finding someone to help me with merch and dealing with the platform and all this stuff. So thank you. I'm grateful to you.
No problem at all. Have a lovely day.
Same to you.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Bye bye.
See you, bye.